Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Albert Einstein.
There's a time for daring, and there's a time for caution, and a wise man understands which is called for. John Keating, Dead Poets Society.
I'd rather learn from one bird how to sing than teach 10,000 stars how not to dance. E. E. Cummings.
Good morning. My name is Margaret Dilks, and I'm a sixth form boarder from Baltimore, Maryland. In thinking about what I was going to write for this my chapel talk today, a lot of you may know that my irrational fear of planes was the front runner as a topic. That said, don't worry, I am going to speak about this silly little fear of mine, but hopefully, another part of my story will highlight something that is a little more applicable to your life than just a fear of flying. Here we go. So, I hate flying. And if you've been on the other end of a phone call, text message, or Snapchat from me anytime in the past few years before I board a plane, you may know that I freak out more times than not about getting onto said giant flying metal tube. There are countless stories about me having a nervous breakdown or panic attack on the day when I have to fly somewhere, and embarrassing myself in front of a lot more people than I should have. For example, about a year and a half ago, I started crying immediately as I stepped onto the plane. The flight attendant at the front of the plane saw me in my distress, attempted to calm me down initially, but eventually had to direct me into the cockpit in the hopes of calming me down, where the pilots were preparing for the flight. To my horror, they were just sitting there eating ice cream. It shocked me that everyone didn't seem to have the same fear as me, for some odd reason. That's just how my mind was working at the time. But this flight was routine for the pilots and pretty much everyone around me. I should have calmed myself down, seeing them in their routine, but I was inclined to just sit down in the middle of the aisle and hold up the whole plane from boarding. However, I came to the conclusion that the pilots weren't going to just cancel the flight because a 16-year-old girl was crying about a short 50-minute flight from Baltimore to Connecticut. I still had some panic attacks after that one incident, and even to this day, I get really nervous when a plane takes off. But one thing I realized, with the help of a bit of medication, is that where I need to get in life physically, I need to get on the plane and suck it up. I can't just freak out before I get on the plane or in the airport and just sit down in the aisle and cry and hold on to a massive grudge about flying. That's just not how life goes. I'm standing here, just like many of you, right now because I had to board a plane a few days ago to return to campus from spring break. My fear of flying has led me to realize another thing that I hate: grudges. For most people, a grudge is a negative feeling or thought you hold on to, either towards someone in specific or just in general towards things around you. Whether it may be from a fear, like my fear of flying, someone saying something negative, or things just not going your way in general, we all hold grudges in one way or another. I discovered my hatred for grudges a couple of months ago when I really began to try to fix my fear of flying. You could say I have a grudge against grudges. My fear of flying is pretty irrational and petty. And I remember that there are a lot of people in my life who, even when it feels like so much is being thrown at them, or they have a massive fear of doing something, they don't stand for grudges. And they keep moving on with life, just as the pilots did when they saw me in my panic state. The most important person in my life where I see this trait is my mom. As all of you know, 2020 was a pretty bad year. The pandemic really shook the world and affected everyone's day-to-day life. We lost connections with those we love because of the isolation, and everything completely changed. It felt like bad thing after bad thing kept coming, especially at the beginning. For my mom, 2020 was more than just the COVID-19 pandemic. She also had to deal with a number of tough circumstances right before and throughout the pandemic. It all started with the death of my grandfather, who I call Morfar, which is Swedish for grandfather. For my mom, this was the first monumental death in her family. She had never lost anyone so close to her before, and I didn't realize it then, but grief had hit her pretty hard. It didn't help either that about a month before Morfar passed away, I tore my meniscus, requiring major surgery, leaving me to hobble around on crutches, which I quickly and adequately bedazzled with pink rhinestones. My mom was pretty much my main caretaker. During that difficult time, she helped me do almost everything. She helped me get up and down the stairs. She made my meals and made my bed for me when I was bound to my crutches. Selfishly, I didn't realize that she was also taking care of Morfar in his final weeks, while juggling everything else going on in my family, day after day. It took my mom It seemed as though she never got a break. It took my mom some time to move past her initial grief, as there were moments when I saw her at her lowest. But she was able to keep moving forward, as this is just a part of life, no matter how tough. However, to make matters worse for my mom, shortly after Morfar passed away, we found out that my uncle Stefan, my mom's older brother, had been diagnosed with a form of blood cancer called multiple myeloma, requiring him to go all around the country searching for treatment, specifically to a place where he could receive a stem cell transplant. His diagnosis happened right at the beginning of the pandemic, when the world was completely turned on its head and we were all freaking out. Eventually, though, Uncle Stefan found a hospital for his treatment in Arkansas, of all places. And my mom, being the selfless woman she is, took on the challenge of becoming my uncle's primary caretaker, even still in her grief over their father. Following him to Arkansas, where she lived for several weeks away from my family in a tiny apartment in a place she had never been to before, in order to take care of her brother, who she loves. I could see the stress building up for my mom. She didn't want to be there. She was scared for her brother. She didn't want any of this to be happening, and in reality, she could have held the biggest grudge against the world and could have been mad at all the things happening to her and her family. But she didn't. She kept moving forward and didn't stop wanting to support all the people in her life that needed her support. Today, my mom still deals with situations where she has every right to hold a grudge and stop moving forward. For example, she is basically the primary caretaker of my grandmother, Mormor, whose memory began to fade in 2020. My mom takes care of her, as well as my immediate family, day after day. Because of everything in her life, my mom doesn't get annoyed when smaller, petty things happen that can throw off her day, as she realizes there's so much more to life than to just focus on one inconvenience. Looking back on this time now, I realize my mom didn't have to do so much for her family. She could have just dropped everything and focused on herself. But her actions taught me that life is too short to hold on to the grudges against the world, even when you want to so badly. Mom, thank you for everything you do to help our family, to keep our family on the right path forward. It doesn't go unnoticed. And Dad, you're here too. Thank you for supporting our entire family, especially Mom, through the good and the bad. I love you both. As I said at the beginning of my talk, most of us have dealt with some sort of life-changing event that makes us want to stop everything and sit down in the middle of the aisle and hold some huge grudge against everyone around us in the world. It's okay to have bad feelings toward those around you in some negative moments, but it's important to be able to keep moving forward in our day-to-day lives. Maybe you received a bad grade on a test, so you're mad at your teacher for a few weeks. Or someone you thought may have been your friend said something hurtful about you or to you, so you're mad at your friend for a few weeks. If that happens, you wouldn't just drop everything and do nothing, right? You don't forget the moment, but you push to move forward. You get better, and you prove that you don't let the little things get in the way of what you want to accomplish. To the senior class, we only have 2 more months left on this hill, not even. And in all honesty, I don't really care if you're holding a grudge against me or the person sitting next to you or really anyone in this room or beyond, but I just want to say that it's not worth wasting your precious remaining time on this hill making any new grudges. It's not worth holding on to the old grudges that are affecting your relationships with those around you, that are stopping you from having the best time you can at Westminster. I believe we need to cherish the time we have left together. It's so important in these final moments with each other to embrace forgiveness and accept the fact that we will all be off to our respective places in the world in just a short amount of time. Appreciate the connections and relationships you have right now. We will have new relationships and memories soon, and I don't want a petty little grudge to follow you into your next adventure. To the rest of you sitting in this chapel, who may have years rather than months left on this hill, I push you all to limit the small grudges and grievances you form when something doesn't go your way. It'll weigh you down way more than you know. Appreciate what the school has to offer and embrace the fact that we can make a mistake in one way or another during our time here, but that we will grow from these experiences. Of course, again, you're allowed to be upset with someone who made a mistake towards you. You're allowed to be frustrated after a bad game or a poor assignment. But find the time to take positive steps forward after it happens to prevent a grudge from forming and holding you back. I got on the plane. I'm going to have to keep getting on a plane if I want to get anywhere in life, literally. I'm here right now, and if you take it from me, whatever your airplane is in life, whatever's holding you back, I'm telling you that you can board it. You can move forward, even though it might not be what you want to do. Trust me, I don't want to get on another plane, but you have to keep moving forward. Your past grudges shouldn't hold you back from doing what you want, when you want. Thank you.